Hi, this is Jeff Carpenter, and I am here to show you how to deploy a K8ssandra cluster that spans multiple Kubernetes clusters. And you can find the instructions for running this demo yourself on the K8ssandra website that I'm showing you here. If you're not familiar with K8ssandra, it's a project that helps you to deploy Apache Cassandra and supporting tools inside Kubernetes using Helm. This includes the CAS operator that deploys your Cassandra clusters and tools that keep your cluster running nice and efficiently, as well as the Stargate project, which is a data gateway for Cassandra. The deployments that we will show you in this demo are based on the K8ssandra 1.x series, and that deploys everything with Helm. You can read some about the challenges that we've had with that in our post on the new stack. And we're also working on a K8ssandra operator for a 2.0 release, and that's going to make some of the deployments that we blog and demonstrate for you. It'll make them a lot easier in the future. Here's a post that shows you how to do everything that I'm demonstrating for you here. This is actually the first in a series of posts that describe different ways to deploy K8ssandra across multiple data centers. And the series shows you what deployments are possible with the 1.x series of K8ssandra. The deployment I'm going to demonstrate for you now shows how we can use Kubernetes namespaces to create two separate installations of K8ssandra, and we'll link these together so that we have a single Cassandra cluster that lives in two different data centers. Now, they're actually going to be running in the same GKE cluster, but this is a great demonstration of how you can actually have two different K8ssandra or Cassandra data centers and use one for your transactional workload and one for analytic workloads. And this is kind of a building block for some of the more advanced deployments that you can read about on our blog. So to get started with this demo, we actually need a cluster somewhere, a Kubernetes cluster. So we're going to create one in GKE. That's the Google Kubernetes engine. And we're going to do that using some Terraform scripts. And you can actually find this on our GitHub under our K8ssandra Terraform repo. So for the first step here, we'll use the Terraform scripts. Now, I've already cloned the repo on my desktop. So as we'll see described here, I'm going to just set a few environment variables. And the instructions here tell you how to set up all the prerequisites that you're going to need for your environment. And then it'll give you the instructions for how to get going with Terraform. Now, the first thing that you're going to want to do, once you have everything installed, like kubectl and Helm v3, is to clone that K8ssandra Terraform project. Make sure that you have the gcloud command line set up as well. And then you'll copy these environment variables that you want to set in your environment. Now, I'm actually going to change these from the defaults because I'm using a different GCP region and I have my own project ID. So you can see here how I've set the environment variables to different values for my own environment. And I still have to type in the project ID here, which I'll go ahead and do and configure. So the next step is going to be actually to go ahead, verify our environment settings. So I've actually cloned this in a different location than what the web page says, slightly differently. I'm going to go in here and check out the configuration file. And then I'm going to do that before I do my Terraform init. So I'm going to look at this GKE values and see that I've correctly set for the right region and actually set up my affinity for my data centers so that I have worker nodes in each of my availability zones. And then I'm ready to run Terraform plan. And that is going to show me what Terraform is going to do to create my Kubernetes cluster. And that is going to actually deploy the GKE cluster. Now we're going to go ahead and verify that the cluster was created correctly. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to check things out in our GCP console. So I like to get a good comfort level from seeing it show up in the Google console. We see here that as part of this, there was actually a network and a subnetwork that were both created. There's another way that we can check this, and that's to make sure that our kubectl context was set to the new GKE cluster. K8ssandra is going to work to make sure that our Cassandra cluster is secure. So if we don't specify an administrator username and password, it will create one for us. So let's go ahead and create our own credentials. That way we will know what they are, and we can make them the same across both data centers. And at the same time as we're doing this, we'll create a separate namespace for each data center and identical secrets in each data center. Now we'll create a specification for the first K8ssandra data center. I've already copied the configuration that we need into a file called dc1.yaml, which you can see here. So we'll go ahead and apply it, and then we'll watch that first data center get created. So to make sure that that first data center was created correctly, let's check and see that all the pods are spinning up. So we can see that there are 3 Cassandra pods. And then we can also see that the other utilities are running. Let's just go ahead and run a get pods, and that'll show everything that's been created in our environment. So we see 3 Cassandra nodes and then all of the other utilities that are part of K8ssandra. Now, in order to prepare for the second data center, we actually need some seed nodes from the first data center. This is going to help the nodes in the second data center to know how to connect and join, so that we have one Cassandra cluster. So we can find the name of that seed service as I show here. Now we're ready to create that second data center. And we've created a file called dc2.yaml where we saved the specification, and note that it uses the seed service that we just learned. Now we can apply this and it'll be part of the definition of our second data center. Now we can apply this command, and then we'll watch it get created. Now that we have created the second data center, we actually need to set up our cluster correctly so that it will replicate all of the key spaces we need across both data centers. So we will actually use the CQL shell to learn about the key space and describe what key spaces are available. And we can go through each one of the key spaces to make sure that it has correct replication settings. So we'll start with system auth, for example, with that key space, and we'll kind of scroll up and see that it has a network topology strategy, but only one data center. So we'll execute an alter key space command that we pull from the blog, and that will set replication for that key space correctly so that we have data that is synced across both data centers. So this will just be an operation that we'll need to repeat a couple different times for any key spaces that we need for our application. Okay, now we are getting into the home stretch. We have our replication configured correctly. Let's test everything out and see if we actually made a cluster that has multiple data centers in it. So to do this, we will use node tool. We'll connect to a node in the first cluster and just do a node tool status. And we see here that we have 2 data centers, DC1 and DC2. Okay, so that was just one possible configuration. There are several others that we have documented how to do on the K8ssandra.io website. And another one that might interest you is this one, where we deploy across 2 different regions in Google Cloud. One interesting part of this configuration is that we use Google's brand new Cloud DNS service to get name resolution across the data centers, which makes the configuration a lot easier. You might want to check out our blog to get up to speed on this.